Hola a todos, bienvenido a un nuevo video. Hoy en día vamos a hablar cómo yo aprendí español. Sé que mi español ya no está perfecto, pero yo siempre hago mi mejor intento y espero que puedo ayudarles con algunos tips que yo aprendí. So hi guys, welcome back to a new video. Today I want to talk about how I learned Spanish and some of my best Spanish resources for learning Spanish. I feel like I just said Spanish a lot, but that's okay. That's what this video is about. So today I'm going to be going over lots of things, different apps, different YouTube channels, different podcasts, different videos to watch, different courses, and I've tried many of these myself. Some of these I've just heard are really great. So I'll be talking about all of these, and the great thing about these resources is some of them are paid if you want a little bit extra help, but a lot of them are free, and I really don't believe that you have to spend any money to learn a language. I honestly think you can learn a language 100% for free. That's what I did for many years while I was learning Spanish. I didn't pay for really anything at all, and I want to show you how you can learn for free as well. A lot of people always ask how long will it take to learn a language and how fast can I learn this language, and honestly the answer really depends on you. It's going to depend on how much time and consistency you're willing to put into it. Remember, consistency is more important than the individual time that you put into something. So for example, if you cram for 3 hours one day a week, then that's great. That's better than nothing, obviously, but it's a lot better to do maybe 20-15 minutes a day, because your brain is just going to remember these things better. So I began learning Spanish when I was in high school, so that was about 5 or 6 years ago now, so quite a while, because I've already graduated university, not just high school. So it was a while ago, and I started learning Spanish because I had a bunch of friends that spoke Spanish and I really wanted to understand them. I was also really interested in the different Spanish cultures, and I always wanted to travel to a Spanish-speaking country. So I really wanted to learn Spanish, and I was really interested in learning languages. I was learning French at that time in school, but also a lot by myself. So I thought, hey, you know what, if I can do this, I can learn another language on my own as well. And if you already speak another language, that's way easier to learn another language. You get a sense for similar vocabulary, similar words. Obviously that's not going to translate as directly as for example, learning French and Spanish together compared to learning Mandarin and Spanish together. You're not going to get as much as an overlap, but you're still going to get that practice of knowing the different conjugation rules, or knowing how a language works, or just getting a sense for studying and that consistency every day. So it's really helpful. But if you don't know another language, don't worry, you can always start. It's so fun learning a language, and I really hope you follow this video. This video is going to be for absolute beginners who don't know a single word of Spanish, to intermediate Spanish learners, to even advanced Spanish learners. I would say I'm more of an intermediate Spanish learner. I would say my language level is around the B1, B2 level. I feel comfortable having a conversation about pretty much anything in Spanish, but I still make quite a few mistakes when I'm talking, and I still struggle a bit. But hey, that's where the joy of learning a language comes from. Before we go any further into this video, make sure you hit the red subscribe button down below. That really helps out my little channel. Thank you so much, and let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, when you're trying to learn Spanish, I would really recommend trying to pick a dialect or a region to study. Now, you don't have to completely stick to this region and boycott all the other regions of Spanish, but Spanish does have a few different dialects, and it can be a little bit confusing to try and learn different dialects at once. Obviously, it's good to be aware of them, but maybe try not to study and completely incorporate those other dialects into your everyday routine. So for example, for me, I mostly speak Mexican Spanish. I watch a lot of Mexican YouTubers. I feel the most comfortable with Mexican Spanish. I find they have a really beautiful, clean accent that's easy to follow. It's a lot easier to understand than some of the other Spanish accents. But that being said, I also love watching La Casa de Papel on Netflix, which is a Spanish TV show from Spain. And again, that's a different dialect, different region. and they use different words. Their accent is quite different as well. So I'm not saying don't listen to other Spanish regions, but maybe just pick one main one that you're going to really try to absorb and emulate. Just an example for how different the Spanish dialects can be. If you take the double L sound, so in most Spanish places, it's gonna be pronounced as like a Y sound. So for example, me llamo. So me llamo, llamo. That's kind of like a Y sound with the two L's. But in Argentina, it's pronounced more of a sh sound. So for example, me llamo would be me llamo. I don't think I said that very well because again, I don't speak Argentinian Spanish super well. Or I shouldn't say super well, I don't really speak it at all, but I think it is a really pretty accent. And if that's the Spanish you want to learn, go for it. Again, I just wanted to show you guys how different the different regions can be. So my first tip when trying to learn a language from scratch is to try and make a cheat sheet. I did one for German that I'll show here. So I just listed out the common pronouns, the common verbs and their conjugations, and that's a really nice useful guide to get a sense of the basic grammar and some basic words as well that you can use in your speaking practice. So I recommend doing that when you start. Another thing I recommend doing when you start is learning the top like 1,000 or 2,000 most common words in a language. That is going to help you so much. You really want to concentrate your efforts on learning smarter, not harder. So you don't need to learn, like in school, we would go by different like subjects, like, okay, we're going to learn about school supplies and we're going to learn about animals and different vocabulary like that. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but if you really want to save your time and really concentrate on what's going to give you like the highest yield for your time, I recommend looking at the list of the most common words first. And you can just find this just by Googling like top 1,000, top 2,000 most common words in Spanish. Now with those words, I really recommend using Anki and putting them into an Anki deck. So for those of you who don't know what Anki is a flashcard app that uses spaced repetition, and that is so useful when learning a language because you want your brain to start remembering things right when it's about to forget it. I don't know if that made sense, but for example, if you know a word really well, you're going to see it less often than a word that you don't know so well. So for example, if you're really struggling with the word, you might see it every day. And if you know a word really well, you might see it maybe every few days or even every few weeks. I wouldn't focus too much on grammar. If you want to buy a textbook, that's great. I don't really have any that I recommend because that's just not how I learn personally for the most part. But what I recommend with grammar is trying to set aside some time to do some conjugation practice. So practice some verbs that you learned and practice conjugating them. It doesn't have to be, there's like so many tenses, but just pick, for example, the present tense, maybe the simple future or the simple past, just whatever you're working on in the moment, practice conjugating that verb. Maybe you can practice conjugating all three of them, and then you can learn tenses that way. And then for any other grammar concepts, I recommend just as you go along in your language learning journey, if you find something that you don't quite understand, then just look it up and then learn the grammar rules that way. My next tip, and this is for anyone, absolute beginners, intermediates, or advanced learners, is practice writing. So the best way to do this is just by journaling. You can journal about your day, you can journal about a topic, maybe something you saw in the news. It can be whatever, and it can be as basic or as advanced as you want it to be. And a great way to learn some new words is set a timer for 15 minutes and just write. Don't worry about looking things up. Just write the English word if you don't know what to say. And then go back and look at all your English words and just find the Spanish translation for them. I use Spanish Dictionary, Spanish Dict, I think. It's a great app for just translating Spanish words, for looking up new words. Another great one is called Reverso, and this one is really great because it gives you a bunch of examples in the context of the word that you're trying to learn. A more advanced tip is if you find that you're repeating the same word over and over again, so maybe that could be an adjective like, I don't know, like mal. So instead of saying mal, you can take a look and find some synonyms for it. And expanding your vocabulary like that is really going to elevate your language learning. My next tip, and I think if you're going to take away anything from this video at all, it is follow this tip. And that is the best way to learn a language is by speaking. You're not learning a language to be able to, well, maybe you want to be able to like read it and write it and all that, and that's great. But the main reason you're learning a language is to be able to speak it, to be able to communicate with people across different cultures. So speaking is the best way to learn a language. Now you might be wondering, how do I speak this language? Well, you can talk to yourself, you can talk to a friend if you have one. Not like if you have a single friend, but like if you have a friend who happens to speak Spanish. That sounded really mean. But another great way is through italki. So italki is really great. You can find just Spanish tutors, Spanish professional teachers on there as well, and you can just practice speaking. And this is like the single thing that will elevate your language learning the most, is just by speaking the language. Don't worry, even if you're an absolute beginner, you can just go out, you can practice writing some things down before your lesson. Maybe it can just be something simple like, hola, me llamo Erika. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, gracias. Like a simple conversation dialogue like that, and you can practice saying that, and that way you practice the pronunciation, you practice speaking in front of someone, you learn new words that your tutors are going to teach you, and it's just really great. If you're not very confident, I even do this still, is I'll just have Google Translate open while I'm speaking, and that way if I just can't think of a word, I can just translate it quickly, and when I say that word, it's going to be ingrained in my memory even better. So italki used to have this thing where you could find language partners, so you could just find random people, random learners like you, and communicate with them, but I haven't really seen this feature that often anymore, so I have another option for you. If you want a free option, if you don't want to be paying for the language lessons that italki offers, then try Tandem. Tandem is a really good app. You can find people from all over the world. You can even filter by location. So for example, finding people from Mexico. I think you can even search by city as well. But this is a great way to do like language exchanges. So for example, I go on there, I just do a quick blurb to people and I say like, hi, my name is Erika, I'm learning Spanish. I really want to find a language partner to practice with. I'll help you practice your English if you help me practice my Spanish, or whatever language you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be English, but you can filter it so that you can find, okay, people who are learning this language, the language that I speak, who also speak Spanish. And that way you can find someone that you can be partners with. And I've actually done this with all of my languages, and I found really amazing friends online this way. We'll do like Skype calls, we'll do like 30 minutes in English, 30 minutes in Spanish, or whatever it is, and that has been super, super helpful for me. Next up, I have listening. So for listening, one of my favorite ways to listen to Spanish is through podcasts. For beginners of any level, you can try doing Coffee Break Spanish. That's one of my favorite ways to start learning a language, is using the Coffee Break podcast. If you're learning another language, they usually offer a bunch of different languages, so check them out. You can find them, I usually use Google Podcasts, so you can totally find it on there. But Coffee Break Spanish is really great to try. If you're a little bit more advanced, like intermediate to advanced, and you just want a podcast that's all in Spanish by native Spanish speakers, I have a few that I recommend. I love Entiende tu Mente, CNN Cinco Cosas, Amigos Imaginarios, Audiolibros Por Qué Leer, Curiosidades de la Historia Nacional Geográfica, Enigmas sin resolver, Guerras de Business. Next up, this is a little bit different, but I have a course. So I haven't taken this myself, but I've heard really great things about it, so I definitely recommend trying it out, and that is Damon Dominique's Spanish course. He also has a French course that I know is really good as well. So this is great if you want a little bit more of a structured approach. His courses are really fun. They're a great way to learn, so I recommend checking that out. Next thing I have is trying out a TV show. So for example, my favorite one is La Casa de Papel, and that is a Spanish show on Netflix. Another Netflix original is Tiempos de Guerra, and this one is such an underrated show. I feel like I've heard absolutely no one talk about this, but I love it. It's full of romance and adventure, and it's historical, and it's just beautiful. I love it. Another one is Chicas de Cable. Chicas de Cable, Chicas de Cable. No sé. Now, if you're an absolute beginner, I still recommend watching these shows with the subtitles in English, and then you can progress to the subtitles in Spanish, but just practice speaking and repeating after the people. I do this still. It's a great way to practice your pronunciation, practice new vocabulary. It just melts into your brain better, I find. But I recommend doing that. And I also recommend trying out Peppa Pig. So you can find just videos on YouTube of Peppa Pig in Spanish. And this is a great way to really practice your vocabulary and watch something that you can actually understand. Next, I have Disney Plus. Disney Plus is amazing when learning languages. I know this is a paid service, but if you have maybe a friend that you can share it with, it's really great. But you have a ton of languages on there, and you can watch your favorite movies dubbed. And it's great because you know the movie, so you know what's going on, so you can focus more on the language. Next up I have is songs. So songs are really great. I love listening to like the most popular songs in Mexico right now, things like that. So that's really great on Spotify. Another great way to learn a language is by looking at the song lyrics and learning new vocabulary that way. I really love doing this with like Disney songs because the vocabulary, it tends to be a bit more basic, and it's easier to sing along with these songs. Finally, check out some YouTubers. I'll talk about some of my favorite ones. So my absolute favorite YouTuber, not just in Spanish, but I think of like all time, I love her personality so much, is Hola, soy Shannon, and she does great like just vlogs of her life. She's currently in Korea right now, so she's vlogging all of that. And I just love her personality so much. She's the sweetest human. If you like her videos, I highly recommend checking out her husband's videos as well. So his channel is called Coreano Vlogs. He's not a native Spanish speaker. He's actually a Korean who moved to Mexico, fell in love with the culture, fell in love with Shannon, and he lives there now and works there full time. But he's got such a great personality, and I find it really motivating as well to listen to his Spanish just because he's at such a high level. So even though he's not a native speaker and he still makes mistakes sometimes, he's a really great person to listen to. Next, a really popular channel from Mexico. Most of my recommendations are Mexican YouTubers. I don't know, I just love Mexico, so that's the niche I kind of fell into, I guess, with what YouTube started recommending me. But anyway, Luisito Comunica, no puedo decirlo ahora, but Luisito Comunica. Iris Roig, and she's a Spanish YouTuber. I think she's the only Spanish YouTuber that I follow, but she does great content on productivity, healthy habits, personal development, things like that. Christian Burgos Correa, and this is a podcast actually they can find. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about podcasts, but his channel does like podcast style videos that you can watch or listen to. They're really great when driving in the car, and he's just an interesting guy. He's from Mexico, he moved to Korea, and he works there now full time, and he does a bunch of interviews with people. Miguel Imneda, no sé cómo decir su apellido, pero Miguel Imneda. So he is a Mexican that moved to Korea, fell in love with a Korean woman, and now they have a child there. And he just does vlogs of his family life and things like that. I find them really sweet too. I don't know what it is with this list and having like Mexicans and Koreans together, but I love it. It's a great mix. And finally, my last YouTube recommendation is Vale Caballero, and I believe she's from Chile. So if you want someone with like a different accent or a little bit more of a challenging accent to listen to, definitely check out her videos. And if you like none of these, that's okay. Just watch them anyway, give them a like, give them a comment or whatever, because that way the YouTube algorithm will know to recommend you YouTubers in Spanish, and that's a really great way to find people that you like. And make sure with whoever you follow on YouTube, follow them on Instagram as well, because that way you can watch like their stories and things like that and get a sense of like the everyday Spanish language. Reading, so check out, I have some easy Spanish books that you can get on Kindle. You can search for like easy Spanish stories just on Google, and you can find some that way as well. Check out news articles. I think you can find ones that are in easy Spanish as well. I'll take a look and link it down below. Otherwise you can just read like general news articles. Fluent U, they're really great for beginners. They have videos as well, but they have some really great easy articles to read. And then if you're more intermediate to advanced, just try reading some of your favorite books or some books that are on your TBR. You can also listen to books on Audible as well. I recently read Hábitos Atómicos on Audible, and that was great. It was really easy to listen to. The language was super clear. I really enjoyed that, but that's a really great option. You can check out my link in the description below just for a 30-day free trial of Audible, I think it is. It's not sponsored, it's just an affiliate link, but it really helps me out. It's at no extra charge to you, so please check that out. Lastly, I have apps. So I don't think apps are like the ultimate way to learn a language, but I think they're a really great adjunct to whatever you're already doing or whatever you're going to be doing. So Duolingo, Memrise, Babbel are just a few. There's a whole bunch out there. Duolingo is probably my favorite just because it's the one that I've used, but you can check those out and see which one appeals to you the most. Again, make sure this isn't the only thing you're doing, but I think it's a really great way to learn vocabulary and grammar as well. Finally, a tip is to switch your phone language over to Spanish. This is really great just for immersing yourself in the language. It's just really great when you're using Google Maps or things like that to listen to the directions in Spanish. So it's a really great way to immerse yourself. That brings us to the end of this video. I'm sure I missed some amazing tip. So make sure if you have any tips for learning languages in general or for learning Spanish, that you pop it in the comments down below. Helps us all out and helps us on our language learning journey. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit the red subscribe button before you go. I make videos about language learning, traveling, and just lifestyle content in general.